Hey, this is Michael from Digital T-Shirt Shop. This is going to be kind of a little bit odd, but I wanted to talk briefly about. I pulled out my Brooklyn cap today, and I was thinking about uh, my mission in New York City. Um, when I went to New York on my LDS mission, it was pretty interesting. I flew into JFK. Our mission office was up here in Great Neck. My second day, they took us to Rego Park, Queens, which is right there. And then I went down and I lived. My first area was in Ozone Park. Well, I lived in Ozone Park, but worked in East New York, right here. And then from East New York, I was there for a couple months, and then they sent me over to Williamsburg, Bushwick area. I was there for a month, and then I went down to Flatbush, and then I went back to Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and then I went all the way out to um, Patchogue, New York, all the way out here. Patchogue. Looks like it's too small of a place. So there's Patchogue. I worked all out here. I did take one trip out to Montauk Point, out here to see the lighthouse. Long drive, lots of beautiful houses along here, incredible vineyards and expensive car dealerships, and it's like a whole different world out here. You can consider you go from Williamsburg, Bushwick area right here out to here in the Hamptons and stuff. It's unbelievable, really, really unbelievable. Um, then I came back and I was put in Jamaica, Queens. Um, so right over here in Jamaica, and I lived over in South Jamaica, and then I came up to Sunnyside, Woodside, Astoria, and then I believe I came down to Sunset Park, and then I went back to East New York and then back to Sunset Park. So places in Brooklyn, Sunset Park. I love this place. Sunset Park. I love this place. East New York. Sorry. Oh, I forgot Brownsville. I lived in Brownsville. So Brownsville, Flatbush, Williamsburg. This Brownsville area. Whew. Wow. Um, that was. I remember the first day that I got there. And my companion goes, "We go home at dark every night." And I said, "No, we don't." And we stayed out. We stayed out and worked all day and late into the evening every night. And uh, it was really an amazing place. I tell you, uh, the some of the things that we saw there, I didn't see anywhere else on my mission. Uh, Really, really a rough area. Really, really a rough area. Brownsville, never ran, never will was the motto. East New York, live and die in East New York. I think over here in the Williamsburg, this was a great place. One of my favorite areas too. I lived right down at the bottom of the Williamsburg Bridge in one of those wedge-shaped buildings. Um, and there's a heavy Jewish area here. Um, and so like you'd be walking around and there'd be like Jews everywhere with the hats, and it was funny that a lot of them dressed the same and pushed the same, the ladies pushed the same strollers and things like that. And every Friday night you'd hear a horn thing go, and next thing you know, everybody's gone. Poof, the streets could be completely packed, and 5 minutes later, bam, everybody's gone, and they're gone all day Saturday. Um, it was really really interesting. Um, I got to uh, just before I came home. I came home in July of 1997. 97. My companion and I walked from here up. This is my last area, Sunset Park, and we walked up here and went up to the Brooklyn Bridge and watched the fireworks. The 4th of July fireworks from the Brooklyn Bridge here was just completely packed with people. It was really, really amazing, a neat experience. Now, the fireworks were actually barely blowing up above the top of the building, so that was kind of interesting. But if I remember right, the fireworks were blowing up from over here in the East River, and we were watching them over the tops of the buildings. We had to watch over the tops of the buildings over here to see the fireworks as they're blowing up like on a barge or something like that. Um, but neat experience. So this beanie, and I guess what kind of got me thinking about it, this beanie I picked up. So if you ever been to New York City, they sell stuff on the streets all the time there, and having lived there, you kind of would get a feel for where things were and stuff. And so I mean, you all of a sudden it gets really cold. You see somebody selling something on the street, like a hat that you want. You stop and buy one, not a big deal. But there was a store we called the Secret Handshake Store um, in Manhattan. I know it's not really the Secret Handshake Store, it's the wholesale store. But we found the store. So from Central Park, we got to go to. So you're on an LDS mission. You're like pretty much that's your job. That's what you do. But we got a couple days a year that we were able, in my case, to go to Manhattan and spend a little bit of time there. So on Broadway, which is this road coming right down here, Broadway, down just past the Empire State Building, which I think is on 32nd Street, 34th. There it is right there, Empire State Building. Between there and Chinatown, which I believe is down here around 20th. I'm probably not going to see it on here because I probably don't have it labeled as Chinatown. But anyways, in between about 32nd and 20th, right down through here, we would go and walk down the streets and look for a building where everybody was walking out of the building with black garbage bags. Now, what they were doing inside the building is the people who sold things on the streets would go inside the building and buy stuff at half price to turn around and sell on the streets. So we would walk up, and here we are, shirts and ties, and it's all black market knockoff stuff, and there'd be like some big dude at the door, and he'd look at us funny, like, "You guys the police?" We're like, "No." We're like, "Do they sell wholesale here?" They're like, "Yeah, we sell wholesale." And you walk in, and we'd walk in there, and uh, they would have like every room on every floor was a different business selling all of this stuff. And I remember in one case I was in there, and they thought the police had come, and they locked the building down, and we were like stuck in the room for half an hour waiting for them to let us go. Um, and But it's cool place. Just weird stuff like that. That's actually where I got this hat. Um, was from being there, and I wondered if you would believe that I had been there. So that's me right there back during the Twin Towers. I was there from 95 to 97. Twin Towers didn't go down until 2001. That was me 20 years ago and 100 pounds lighter. And then it actually did pull two other photos. That's the church in Bushwick. It was underneath the bank, so you'd go down there, and that was the church down there. And of course, a great graffiti photo of me flashing everybody next to a flasher of graffiti. So, but that's where I was, and it was a marvelous experience to go there and see things that most people don't see. And you come back from New York having lived in some of these areas, understanding life a little bit differently than other people understand it. Um, between just all, when you go there and you're just immersed in people's lives and you see what they go through, it's pretty remarkable. Um, this place over here was one of the coolest places I was at, Sunset Park. This Fifth Avenue right here is a really big shopping area, and I want to say we lived, kind of over here between Sixth and Seventh, on, kind of over here in the 50s. We'd walk up to Sunset Park all the time, but most of what we did here was kind of right in this area. But the whole place is crazy because you could be walking along here and like you have a few streets and avenue right here that's Spanish, and you could come over here and then it turns into uh, I don't know what am I trying to say? Not English, Scottish, Italian, like mafia type stuff. You go a few blocks over, and next thing you know, it's like really the population's all black. You could come up here, and it can go from Jewish to Polish to Spanish to just every. It seems like every few streets you go, like people are like congregating and populating and different areas based on their ethnicity. Like you get up here into the Flushing area, you end up with a lot of Oriental up there. Um, then you had, I mean, it's weird because you can be like in these really, like when I was in East New York and Brownsville area here, real heavily black project buildings. And we would sometimes, I'm not going to get into stories about project buildings and what they're like, but I mean, really interesting, really low income, really rundown segments of it. Some segments of it are really nice, but you go over a little bit and you could have like $1 million mansions and stuff like that here and there, and like all of a sudden the neighborhood will change and there's really expensive houses and really nice houses and things like that. It's really diverse and really bizarre how a lot of it changes as you move around the city there. But it was a lot of fun. It was an experience that few people get to have living in this area and living in some pockets where I would typically fear for my life to actually get off the train. There were a couple of times, uh, I went into some neighborhoods and they, it's, it can be, uh, it can be scary, a little bit scary. So, anyways, but fun place. I would love to go back there again someday. It's been, I think, want to say I went back 1 year later to 97. I probably went back in 98, 99 ish. And, I went down here into the Sunnyside area, or not Sunnyside, Sunset Park area, and went and spent a little bit of time in Manhattan. It was great. It was really, really wonderful. I'd love to go back and take my family someday, so see what happens. But anyways, I just wanted to reminisce a little bit about it. I spent 2 years there. It was a great part of my life. One of the best parts. Met some incredible people there, and one of the, for people who believe, Christians or maybe even whatever your faith is, you take a city like this, and when you immerse yourself in it, you realize how many problems there are. There's so many problems in the world, and everything that we came across, from abortions to murder to rape and violence and child abuse, and the list goes on and on. To people who just don't appear to have a moral compass anywhere in their being. um, Yet in all of that, whether they were Mormon or not, um, were some of the most faithful and good people I've ever met in my life. Um, and that they could live in a place like that and be surrounded by that. All the influences that there are in a city like that, you could be surrounded by that, and you could have such strong and faithful people at the same time that lived there. I met incredible people of all faiths. I shouldn't say all faiths, but many, many, many faiths. I met, whether they were Mormon or whether they were Muslim or whether they were Jehovah Witness or whether they were, I met Mennonites there, Baptists, Pentecostals, Pentecostals, Seventh Day Adventists. Really, what Catholics, lots and lots and lots of Catholics there. Um, lots and lots of people, and people that were just so faithful and so good and lived good lives. And it's amazing that they could live there and be so faithful. But I would imagine if you were going to be faithful, you would, faithful to your religion, you would have to be stronger than your typical person to live there. Um, and yeah, my hat's off to them, because it would really, really be hard. And living outside of a place like that, you realize how much easier it is when you don't have all of those. Now, bad things can happen everywhere, but it seems as though you live in a place like this that different bad things can happen. Proportionately, maybe a few more bad things can happen, and you worry about your kids and the influence that your kids are going to grow up uh, influenced by, whether it's neighbors or just friends at school or things like that. And I don't know, but maybe some of it's naivety on my part, and that you would think that it would be harder. I met a lot of kids there, and I know a lot of the kids had a hard time. They really did. And the kids that grew up in the church had a hard time, and it was hard to be faithful. And as they grew up, it became harder for them to stay faithful in the church. And in the LDS church, the Mormons, the expectation is you grow up and you find another Mormon and you get married in the temple, sealed in the temple. And it was hard for them to do that. It's, you, with all the influences that you have around you. So but anyways, I got thinking about that this morning and wanted to yap about it. um there are a lot of things I remember. There's just a bunch of things I'm not going to share because they'll probably come across wrong. Um, but your perspective oftentimes is made up of your experiences, and you saw what you saw. You saw what you saw, and it can be taken just how you saw it. But I don't want it to come across wrong, so I'm not going to share some of the details of what I experienced there, because oftentimes, especially even here, I would come back and I talk about it, and people just don't get it. It can come across a little too bold, a little too out there sometimes. So Anyways, Brooklyn, love it. New York, love it. Capital of the world. So